Okay, I know we can see a message. The meeting is being streamed. Just click OK. It's just to signify that the meeting is being recorded from this time onward. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful meetup.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am Babatunde Odedele. I'm the host of this webinar. So I welcome you all to today's webinar. So we really appreciate your time for making out time to attend this webinar. Really appreciate you all. So and you can as well help us notify others to join this webinar as the page is open and we're expecting more participants than this number we're having there. So I've sent the order of event to the comment section so we can all follow as the program is going on. So now what you have, we are still waiting.
Sorry for the inches. Inspector Ishelua, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, sir.
I'm not hearing you, sir.
So now we have our lecturer in our midst now. So briefly, before we now go deep into the program, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bankole, are you there? Okay. So last week we started this webinar. That was the inaugural session of this webinar. And we had a very good speaker last week, a woman of valor, and she did so well in presenting the topic that was given to her, the person of Mrs. Omabu Rachel. We all enjoyed our session, and in fact, it was a really touching lecture that last week. That even I myself personally, when I got home, I had to change so many things. Please, I don't know if there is anybody here that attended last week's webinar. We want that person to just give us a little recap of last week's episode. Is there anyone that can help us do justice to that?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can we all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. My own name is Olubode Timothy. Yeah, last week the inaugural webinar started titled Deficiency in Nigeria Educational System, the Parental Effects, was taken by Mrs. Omobu Rachel. In our lecture, she gave us a different topic of what education meant, what's the meaning of education, and then the citing different example, one which says by John, education is the development of all those capacity in an individual which will enable him or her to control his or her immediate environment and fulfill his or her purpose. She also defined parent and the effects or the negative effects some parents have caused in the educational system of their children. She also gave a way out the problem, citing some example, student negative behaviors, lack of academic motivation, exposure to negative influence, maybe due to the habit. Then she also gave some rules of parents to help in a child's education by playing a role model, which she cited so many examples. She also asked some few questions about how we relate to our children and some other ways by which we can also encourage them in their education. And she left us with some few quotations in our closing messages or lectures, that education is the key to unlock the world, which I believe is right. She's right about that. She also gave a quotation that at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of the parents, which I believe she's also right. And then she gave another one: behind every young child who believes in him or herself, there is always a parent who believes first. So I believe those are the take home from the message last week. I believe hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Oh, I'm just speaking to myself.
Yes, we are hearing you, sir.
That is all from last week's lecture.
Please introduce yourself. We don't know your name, sir.
I introduced myself earlier. Okay, my own name is Dr. Olubode Timothy.
Okay, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for that recap. Can we have another attempt by anybody else? Anybody else? You can just unmute yourself and can start talking. Hello, anybody else? Okay, Thank you, Dr. Lubo Timothy. Really enjoyed that, your recap. So you did in fact, that was a very good summary. So which I would like to add some other things to it, what she said last week, and they were really touching. Like parents not knowing the name of their children class teachers. In fact, that was very touching to me that last week when I got to hear that, when she asked us that what is the name of the class teacher of the children. High person, I don't even know if the person is a male or a female, I don't even know. So, but since that last week, I immediately swing into action to know who the class teacher of my children is. In fact, not only all of them, I want to know the class teacher, I want to meet them. So, and also asking your children about their friends, why they choose that person as their friends. All these things are very important in our children's life. And also many other rules that we don't know, like checking the bags of our children or knowing just impromptu. When they just go back from the school, immediately as they are coming, he can just, let me see your bag. Checking their bag can also contribute to how well they are being coordinated in school and their overall practice. Thank you. So I think our guest lecturer is ready for us now. So we want to take today's lecture with the topic Deficiencies in Nigerian educational system, the way forward by the government policies. So he will be doing justice to that topic where we discuss extensively about that topic. So let us be patient and listen to him. We should all mute ourselves. Only the lecturer should be unmuted. Then by the time we now have question and answer, you can either send your questions to the comment section or you raise your hand. So when we now get to that section, we'll call you to ask a question. Question can be asked verbally or by sending it to the comment section. Thank you all. Dr. Bankole Ojo, you have the floor now, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sirs and ma. And I want to say thank you so much to the president of this great foundation, Dr. Odedele Babatunde. Thank you so much for all you are doing. I want to also thank our guest lecturer for last week. Madam, we really thank God for you. Thank you for that wonderful speech. I want to also thank our own brother and friend, Dr. Timothy Olayemi. Thank you. The last time I saw you in Harvard was wonderful. We say thank you. And all other participants here, I saw one of my friend and brother earlier on, Isheoluwa, is a police officer. I hope he will join back soon. And all other CJP, Ogugbara, and then Ebisa and Moses. I say thank you, sir. I can see you. Then our guy Abdurazak Ogumoye, we thank you too for making it. And every other person too numerous to number. I want to say it here that we are all going to learn. I hope I'm audible enough, sirs.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. Because of where I am, I will, after a while now, once I start sharing my screen, there is possibility that I will not, what was it called now? I will put my video down such that you may not see my face, but I can bet it with you, you will all hear me very audibly, and that will make everything more pleasant for all of us. Once again, I want to say thank you. We are rewriting a story, and the story we are rewriting is actually our own story. Because when you talk about rewriting a story, it is because some things has happened that made the story not so palatable, and then there is need for us to write a new story, to tell our story. And I think it's important that every one of us know this. It is important for us to enjoy this aspect of the story of our life as a people. Therefore, I want to appeal to us as I begin to share my screen. So please, let's, I'm trying to see if I can share it now. Can we all see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. We are to rewrite our story. The what story has been told before about us? What story are we rewriting? What kind of story do we have now? If you look at this slide, you see the color there, that from the color of the background, you would have seen a nation. That's simply Nigeria. And our president, Dr. Odedele, has taught it wise that in such a time as this, it will be good that we will not just be part of the people who complains, but rather part of the solution of the problem that we have identified. Now, is after identifying a problem, some people can choose to begin to gloom and gloat over that problem rather than finding solutions. And now we are rewriting the story of our educational system. And we are going to be zeroing in this series on deficiency in Nigeria educational system. And we are looking at the way forward. We are not going to look at just this deficiency. We will look at the way forward. Last week, we looked at the role of the parents, how parents led to part of the problem. And now we are looking at the role of the government, who is actually the one formulating the policies. We are looking at how does the policy of the government affect what happened in the country. Okay? And that's what will lead me to my topic, government policies. The role of government policies in our educational system as a nation. As the role, what role has it played? The implementation of this thing we talk about, how has it affected us? What has government done for us? What policies have they put in place? The question of how do they implement these policies? Year in, year out, do they even check the performance of these policies? Do we have 10-year plan, 20 years plan, 30 years plan? How many governments have we had in the last 60 years? And how has this affected the implementation of different policies? Now, these policies, the implementation, how has it translated into development in Nigeria? These are things we are going to be looking at. And that's why in this discussion, I want us to look at this question. Are the educational achievements in Nigeria, our level of achievement in our educational system, is it actually in line with our educational policies? Now, what are the factors or constraints that have made the implementation of educational policies very difficult? Then another thing is, what are the implications of poor implementation of educational policies for national development? Then what strategies can be adopted to ensure better implementation? And that's the way forward. Then the other question which is critical here is what are the deficiencies? I deliberately remove that one because I cannot exhaust the list. And I know you have your own list with you. On the deficiencies, one day, my daughter, 7 years, was asking me a question. My daddy and my uncle talk about this, and that, about aeroplane and everything. When are we going to the airport so that you can show me aeroplane? I said, don't you see it in the sky? He said, but I was talking with my sister, that's the nephew, in the UK. And when they wanted to teach them about those things, they took them there. They saw it. They have carcasses of plane in each state or around the educational institution where they can say, this is a plane, this is the wing, this is the cabin. Now, that will stick with those students more. I know that we have a lot of these things, but these 4 questions, I want us to have them behind our mind as we go through this. Now, let's begin to take it because we are taking time. I am to dwell on education, government policies. And I've gone around to see not only Nigerian policies on education. And if you don't know Nigerian policy on education, I have drawn up a whole lot of them before 1960, but I lay emphasis on 1960 to date. I have also tried to look at policies of India between 1960 and 2020, the policy of China between 1960 and 2023, the policy of Singapore and the policy of South Africa within the same time frame. And as I continue, I want us to do this to be more interactive. At some point, I may stop and ask a certain question. I will ask a certain question. And please, I want every one of us to kindly bear with me as we go. Now, the number one thing here, what is policy? I know that each and every one of us, if we ask this question, we have quite a lot to say about the meaning of policy, what policy means. And as you can see, I have just given us an highlight. A policy is a deliberate system of guidelines to guide decisions and achieve rational outcomes. Please note, number one is that it's a deliberate system of guidelines. These guidelines, we must note it. What is the purpose of the deliberate system of guidelines? One purpose, one of the purposes, it has only 2, but number 1 is to guide decisions. Decisions that you will use in running the system. And number 2, you have a rational outcome. You have a rational outcome or rational outcomes. Things that you want to achieve with the policy must be well spelled out. How many of us know Nigerian policies and what they expect it to achieve? Okay? Number 2, meaning of policy is that policy is a statement of intent. Policy is a statement of intent and is implemented as a procedure or protocol. A procedure or protocol. It must follow certain steps. It's not just something that anyone can just come into and begin to dabble in and try and error. No, there are procedures that must be followed in policy. And then I say, policies are generally adopted by a governance body within an organization and can assist in both subjective and objective decision making. Now, policy is actually to help us to take decision, either subjective decision or objective decision. Now, having gotten this, let's look at what government policy therefore means. What is government policy? Now, a government policy is a rule or principle that guides decisions, resulting in positive outcomes that enhance the community or unit. Can we see that? Government policy is expected to be a rule or a principle that every decision that we run that system must follow. And this is intended for positive outcome. How many of us here, we are, by the grace of God, with these faces, I'm seeing doctors and very knowledgeable individuals. What are the policies of Nigeria on education? Many of us don't know. Many of us that do know by chance do not even know the expected outcome of those policies. Now, policy or government policies contains the reasons things are to be done in a certain way and why. Why do you need a laboratory, a science laboratory for laboratory students? Why do you need a biology lab? Why do you need a fine arts lab for art students? Why do you need music lab? For all these are necessary. Now, also policy. It is a declaration of government political activities, plans, and intentions relating to a particular cause. And I want to understand what government policies means. We can now look at who are the people that fund this policy, at least for education. Government policies on education is actually developed by the Federal Ministry of Education. The Federal Ministry of Education formulates and coordinates national education policy. How? By developing curricula and syllabus. That is curriculum and syllabus. That is what they do. Government, the Federal Ministry of Education is the one that formulates, coordinates, and develops curricula and syllabus. They also collect data for strategic and financial planning. This Federal Ministry of Education, they are the one that maintain quality. They control the qualities, they maintain quality, but the question is, where is the quality they control, really? Then they also help to harmonize state policies, where different states has different policies. They look for a way to harmonize it so that it meets up with the national policies on education. They also cooperate with international stakeholders on education. Now, my topic that was given is deficiency in educational sector, how government policy affected. Now, what is deficiency? One, it refers to quality or condition of being deficient, incompleteness, inadequacy, lack or shortage, especially of something essential to health, such as a nutritional deficiency. Now, it means we have all agreed that there is no quality in our education system. The condition of our educational system is not okay. is incomplete and is inadequate. There are a lot of lack of stuff in it. And I think that's one thing this thing taught us. Now, as we continue in this talk, this webinar will try to look at the influence of this government policy on the observed deficiencies in Nigeria's educational system. It will try to analyze how certain policy decisions or lack of such policy have contributed to the challenges faced by the system. We also look at key deficiencies like inadequate funding, poor infrastructure, outdated curriculum, insufficient teacher training, limited access to education, and then we will explore the role of government policies in excavating these issues. I hope I'm not alone, sirs. If you hear me, let me know. Let's
Yes, we can hear you.
We are with you, sir.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, fine. Can we all together just look at the screen? These are some of the policies of Nigeria, and very quickly, because of our time, because I want us to ask questions, and I want to ask those questions as well. I want us to look at this thing very well. I will, in no particular order, or as number one, I will just make comments about them. Universal Primary Education Scheme of 1976. This policy aimed to provide free and compulsory education for all children in all in primary school age. Yes, that was the intention of this policy. It was intended to provide free education to all Mrs. Egbeyemi Anoluwa, please, can you mute your mic? That mic is okay, fine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, fine. Now, this universal primary education, you remember when Southwest, under the leadership of the late sage, Baba Obafemi Awolowo, introduced the free education in the Southwest in the 1950s. When we came together in 1960, then they began to try to do things. When Obasanjo came in 1976, so to say, they tried to bring things together, and then they implemented this policy of Universal Primary Education Scheme of 1976 to all students of Nigeria, every child of primary school age. That is between age 0 or age 1 to 12, or even above, that it should still go and attend. This was the aim of this policy. I want to ask us, did we achieve it? Has every Nigerian child been to school, the four wall of the classroom? By 1977, they changed the universal primary education to another one. They work on it and make it comprehensive. This policy then was a comprehensive framework for the development of education in Nigeria. It emphasized the importance of education in national development and covered various aspects, such as number one, access to education. 2, quality of our education. Number 3, the curriculum development. And number 4, teacher training development. And this that we talked about was expected to be the foundation of a new era after coming out from all these coup d'etat experiences and the civil war. This was the purpose of National Policy on Education 1977. Then after 4 years, the National Policy on Education was reviewed. And this was to address the challenges in the implementation. Please underline implementation of the National Policy on Education of 1977. And they made some modifications to various aspects of the educational system, especially the curriculum and the teacher training development. Then this one was expected to be wonderful. But between 1976 and 1981, there was a problem. My fathers and mothers here, you will remember Udoji. If you remember Udoji, please, can I hear your voice? Or you have heard about Udoji? Did any of us remember Udoji, or you by any means hear about it?
No.
Please go and read about Jeremy Udoji. Jeremy Udoji was one of the people that he was the person that chaired Nigeria Committee on National Policy, or this thing you call that now metamorphosed into national character or federal character now, and our economy. It was Udoji when the windfall from oil, when they said, let's go and look at what to do. The government of Shagari, of Yakubu Gowon, set up a committee headed by this man. And they were to look at it. What do we need to do? And then they report this thing much later. All the money, number one, this thing is that all the windfall, they should increase teacher salaries or civil servant salary, and then try as much as possible backdate it by 3 years. And that was done. Teachers have so much money. When teachers became rich, civil servants became rich, there were enrollments that we were not planned for. And this enrollment led to a serious problem in our education system that everything almost collapsed. When it almost collapsed, we then tried to introduce a 6334 system of education in 1982, so that we can retain people long enough in the school. And that was done. After that was done, one thing we now begin to notice was that these individuals who we now need more hand, they now begin to bring in people that are not qualified as a teacher. Then that was when we have grade 2 persons who find themselves in classrooms and they begin to teach. And the standard of our education began to go down. Then many of us, look at that number 5. We thought it was Baba Olusegun Obasanjo that started National Open University of Nigeria. Now, actually, okay, let me quickly make a comment on that 6334 again. This policy was used to restructure the educational system into a 6-year primary education, 3-year junior secondary school education, 3-year senior secondary school education, and 4-year tertiary education. And this was aimed to provide a more balanced and vocational oriented curriculum. but that one also failed. By 1985, by 1983, after the enrollment of students, the then government also came up with National Open University. And this act established the National Open University of Nigeria, a distance learning institution that offers flexible opportunity for individuals who cannot attend traditional universities. A National Open University was not actually designed to be an online platform. It was designed to be flexible for people to be working and also attend. But until Obasanjo came, we all know that that one didn't materialize. Then another policy they brought in was Educational Task Fund, ETF, in 1993. This established the Education Trust Fund to provide additional funding for educational infrastructure, research, and development in tertiary institutions. But instead of research and development, we now begin to see them building structures. Because if they spend the money in research, they will not see the money. You will only see the product of the money. But so that they can say they work, they go to schools and begin to build structure. They don't know fund research. And all these are part of the problem we have. But I'm just telling you now, the part of these wonderful policies that have been implemented. Number 7 there is national minimum standards and establishment of institutions for Nigerian polytechnics and colleges. Remember that I said by that 1980, 81, the number of enrollment had increased. By 1994, we now have many students who even finish from the university, but there is no, who finish from secondary school, but they have no higher institution to go. That was what led to national minimum standards and establishment of institution for Nigerian schools. And this one, the policy aimed to establish the minimum standards of polytechnics and colleges of education in Nigeria, ensuring quality and uniformity in their operations. Again, that's a laudable one, but how effective has it been? The next one, universal basic education. We're all aware of this, or the one we call education for all. Education for all came first in 2000 when we returned to democratic government. Nigeria, along with other countries, made a commitment to achieve education for all goals, including universal primary education, gender equality in education, and improved literacy rates among the populace. That was signed then. That was the purpose. Now, we have number 9, which is universal basic education. That one, this policy aims to provide free and compulsory education for all primary and junior secondary school children. It emphasizes the importance of reducing gender gap in education and improving the quality of education. This one is just 2004. But while that was done, we still continue to record very high disparity in gender enrollment. Then we have a revision of national policy on education in 2024, in 2004 again. And this was actually a review of 1977 policy on education. That's number 2. Can you see where I'm going to? Now, it is not that the policy of 1977, the national policy on education, was not good. Because I will try all this area. By that time, in 2004, they came together again and realized that we are failed, that we should go back to our beginning. And that's why I love this team let us rewrite the story. Are we seeing where we need to begin to check what we are doing now, if it's still in line? And this revision or review or revise, as you may call it, that's number 10. This policy updated the 1977 National Policy on Education and introduced changes to various aspects of the educational system, including curriculum development, technical and vocational education, and then special education for the special children, the one we call the special ones among us. By 2006, there was National Policy on Information and Communication, and this sought to integrate ICT into the education system to enhance teaching and learning processes, improve access to educational resources, and develop digital literacy skills. This one, the policy says that each secondary school, each primary school and secondary school must have a computer lab, ICT center, where every child must be taught digital literacy. You and I, you are aware that every public primary school in our villages, they have the best computer laboratories in town. I hope your children is in one of those places. Dr. Odedele, I think your children are in that place. They are in one of the schools. Dr. Ebisan Moses and Dr. Timothy Olayemi. I hope you put your children in these our schools.
Yeah.
Because
yes,
it's like, yes, if your child is in a government school, I salute your courage. I will move my children to that school too. But provided all these policies are adhered to. Then by 2012, there was another policy, and that is National Teacher Education Policy. This policy focused on improving the quality of our teachers, quality of teacher education and professional development programs to enhance the effectiveness of teachers in Nigeria. By that time, there was argument. Is it our curriculum that we're not good or what? They now say it is the quality of teachers. That the crop of teachers in the schools now are not good. Therefore, they sought to increase or improve the quality of teachers. And I bet it with you, that also failed. Then we have number 13, the National Policy on Science, Technology, and Innovation, which was also a review of 2006. And what was this one all about? This also aimed to promote the development and utilization of science, technology, and innovation in various sectors of the economy, including education. But what happened? It failed again. Then we have National Policy on Almajiri. This policy aims to provide formal education, vocational training, and skill acquisition opportunities for the Almajiri children, the Quranic school pupils in the northern Nigeria, so that we get them out of the streets. What has happened to the Almajiri policy on education? What has happened to it? And all these children, remember, they were the recruiting ground, brooding ground for Boko Haram. Now, after Goodluck Ebele Jonathan left, we didn't hear anything about that policy again. Then we have the Safe School Initiative. This policy was implemented in response to the security challenge school faces particularly in the northern Nigeria, after the Chibok and all the rest. This policy was initiated, Safe Schools initiative in 2014. And this was expected to bring some security personnel into our schools. Till this day, you are also aware that schools are still being ransacked by these bandits and Boko Haram. Then what happened to this policy? Then we have another one, entrepreneurship education in secondary school. We all are aware when schools begin to introduce skills that you must now write a skill, you must do a skill, woodwork, and everything. Now, this policy introduced entrepreneurship education as a compulsory subject in secondary schools. So it keeps students with practical skills and encourage self-employment and job creation. This is a laudable stuff for what has happened. Number 17, we have National Policy on Information and Communication Technology in Education, a review of the previous ones too. This policy also outlines the strategies for integrating ICT into the education system to enhance teaching, learning, and administration. If you look at the former one, number 11, if you look at it, you will see that it's the same thing. If you look at number 13, it's the same thing. Then what is the issue? Then lastly, let's look at number 18. That's the this revised policies. This revised policy actually seeks to address emerging challenges and then align our education system with current global trends. And this now begins to emphasize technology, vocational education, skills development, both soft skills and hard skills. I think we are all abreast now with Nigerian policies. You see that if we have implemented all this policy, Nigeria would have been a better place. But what has happened? Have you noticed policy somersault? But let's see China. And please note, this thing I put here, they are actually the policy of China from 1960 to date. They only have 5 or 6 major policies. And each of their policy run for almost 20 years. I put it there so that you can see it. And I hope you see the flow of Nigerian policy, 1976, 1977, 1981, 1982. Are you seeing how it's flowing? But look at China, Cultural Revolution, 1976 to 1966 to 1976. During this cultural revolution, traditional education systems were actually disrupted and formal schooling was largely suspended. Intellectual pursuits were discouraged and education focused on revolutionary ideology and indoctrination was now set in place. That is the purpose of that cultural revolution, to achieve 2 things: revolutionary ideology and political indoctrination. And all that we read, you notice that there was none in Nigerian policy that focused on revolutionary ideology or focused on political indoctrination to give us an idea of democratic governance. Now, after this big frame, what do they do? Number 1 thing, they open up, they reform their school and open up schools. And the first thing they do is compulsory education. China reestablished its education system, making 9 years of compulsory education. 9 years of compulsory education. and that was done in the late 70s. You must spend 9 years, and that was the one Nigeria tried to copy in 1982. Are we together now? This China stuff was what they were trying to copy in 1982. But China had started it in 1976, 77. That was when they start reform and opening up era. They open up, they have a policy for it. And one of the things they do is they make education compulsory. And they make it available to all children for first 6 years in primary school and 3 years of junior secondary school. Then, education expansion. They expanded the reach, access. They didn't just call their own access, they called it expansion. And the policy was so targeted that it was powerful. They make it available. And China prioritized expanding access to education, particularly in rural and underdeveloped areas. This involved constructing more schools, recruiting additional teachers, and increasing enrollment rates. This was what they were doing. Then, higher education reforms. That is still under reform and opening up. China implemented reforms to expand higher education opportunities. The establishment of universities, colleges, and specialized institutions increased access to tertiary education. The government also promoted scientific research and technological advancements in the 1970s. What was Nigeria doing then? We were busy having one coup to another, one election to another, burning houses, burning school, locking school, and this has retarded our progress. Now, by 1990s, they have enough schools everywhere, but they also have challenges with the quality of their education. And then they established what we call quality and equity in education from 1990 onwards. Now, the quality improvement policy, the quality improvement policy they set, China focused on improving the quality of education by one, upgrading their infrastructure, enhancing teacher training programs, and implementing curriculum reforms. This was done in 1990s. The aim was to provide a well-rounded education that emphasized academic knowledge, skills development, and moral education. Please, I hope you note what I just said. Look at what they target now. Number one, academic knowledge. All their reforms in the 1990s was one, academic knowledge, skills development, and then moral education. Why in Nigeria today, we begin to talk about moral decadence in our education? Are you not seeing why we are wrong? Then, they now make compulsory education consolidation. That's another, under that quality and equity, compulsory education consolidation. China emphasized the consolidation of compulsory education by addressing regional disparities and ensuring equal access to education across the country. Policies were implemented to improve the quality of rural education and reduce urban-rural education gaps. For me, I came from a village. The schools I attended are still standing. My classes are still there, dilapidated. and nothing has been done to it. And then we begin to complain about brain drain in the rural area. Who we have the first-class student that will go to rural area to teach. Our corpers, they don't want to go and serve again. They redeploy to the cities. But for China, they zero in. And let's go to 21st century. What do they do? Education for all-round development. I'm saying this was the way they did their own. And what happened? Number one, they look at balanced curriculum. They introduce policies to promote a balanced curriculum that encompasses academic subjects, physical education, arts, and then moral education. The focus shifted from rote memorization to fostering critical thinking, creative thinking, creativity, and practical skills. What this means is that a child can write and fail, but you will not grade that child based on what he has written. You will do practical, you will do thinking, and everything you will now bring it together. You see them doing well. Education technology, they embrace technology. They integrate technology into their classrooms, curriculum deliveries, policies that encourage the use of digital resources, e-learning platforms, and online education to enhance teaching and learning experiences was done for primary and secondary school in China. Why our Nigerian schools here, we don't have it yet? We have problem. Now, they have vocational education. After that, they have global engagement and education diplomacy. We can see all these policies that are here. Time will not permit me, but let me quickly go to our own issue. What is the major issue with all our own? All the other countries I showed us, they had their own policies and they came out doing well. Why are we not having the same thing? Number one, if our policies are already deficient, we know, we agree, but the little one should have been implemented, at least we will see results. But because we do not do that, we have this problem. And the problem is, as you have seen it, number one is implementation. Then we will now talk about those things that made the implementation fail. Number one, inadequate qualified teachers, insufficient funding, inadequate teaching and learning facilities, poor motivation of teachers, lack of guidance and counseling service. This may look small, but these are the major constraints we have. These are the major constraints we have. Sorry, what happened? My slide has disappeared. Please, are we seeing?
We can hear you, please. Slide? We can hear you.
Okay, fine. Now, these and many more are the issue we have with our curriculum and with our educational system. Now, let's look at all of these: inadequate funding for infrastructure, outdated curriculum, insufficient teacher training, limited access to education, and all this has landed us to where we are today. Now, what is the way forward? Like I said, one problem I have seen is implementation of policy. The few one we've done. And what are those things that made implementation difficult? You have robust ideas to make this work, but you don't have people, qualified individuals who will make it available. May I tell you, I work in an educational system. I'm a lecturer. Somebody came to apply for a job, and the person does not know how to use email address, email. We have lecturers at some point that we have to send out. They could not send documents via email. Is it the same person you will want to use Zoom to facilitate lectures? Inadequate qualified teachers, insufficiency of funds. You have policies, but there is no money to run it. The money has been embezzled by politicians and their cronies. Then the teaching environment, the teaching facilities are not available. The teachers, the few ones that are qualified, they are not motivated. For the students, they are lost. They don't know where to turn to because there is no guidance and counseling services in all our primary schools and secondary school. CJP Ogubara, please, I see your hands up. You can speak, sir. You can unmute yourself and speak, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That has been a very wonderful lecture. The paper, very robust, well researched. By the way, my name is CJP, as written there. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a promoter of Accurate, this Accurate Foundation, this Accurate, program.
Okay.
Right. I missed the other time, the other lecture, but I made it I suspended a lot of things in order to participate in this very one. And of course, I was meant to kind of make some comments, but while I will make a comment, I will seek your permission, sir. The lecturer, to make some kind of critique this presentation. And
no
then,
problem, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Bear my opinion. Yes, sir. Now, you see, I beg to disagree with you in some areas, and I will be very, very critical about what I am saying. I want to say this. You have gone India, China, Singapore, and I think one other country that was contained in the paper.
South Africa.
South Africa. Very commendable. But, sir, I didn't see you, illuminate or bring to light how funding of education is done there, and the business of education, how it is driven, whether it is public driven or private driven. Right. Mm-hmm. And then if it is public driven, how is the structuring of the financing? Because let's take the 6334 program policy of the government that you stated. You realize that it's not safe. The private-driven education system is not working. If you enter any university owned by a private institution, believe me, within 4 years, you are done. If you enter a secondary school owned by a private entity, within 3 years, you are done, and you are done with whatever you have gone there to do. But that's not the same with public. So you discover that the problem of implementation is rooted to who is driving this education. So if you keep saying that it is not working out in this country, that's where I beg to disagree. Because, for example, I hold 2 master's degree and I'm a doctorate student. Right. I got into, there was a program handled under in UI. That's where I'm doing my doctorate and where I did my second master's. My second master, we were informed that this is McCartan Foundation funded education system. More or less, it's like a private. But could you believe that along the line, because this thing is domiciled or domesticated within University of Ibadan, the same Nigerian system, the same public rotten approach towards everything was still brought into this program. And instead of a program that I was meant to spend 2 years, the program I was meant to spend 2 years, I ended up spending 3 to 4 years. The point I'm making is making it a general view that is not working in this country. I mean, what I would have expected, or what I would have, I'm critiquing I'm just analyzing the paper from this perspective. I could be wrong, but this is my view. I believe that, look, it's better for us to tell it down that, look, education, government should not have business doing business. They should stop at policy making and regulation, whereby, for example, we have the federal, there was a case reported in Abuja recently where something happened to a student, and the private school was restricting this Federal Commission for Consumer Protection, having access into auditing what really transpired. I expect that is regulation. I expect a situation where government will be proactive in terms of a regulation, because it's all about watchdog. But when you allow government, for example, you mentioned that the schools that you attended have become dilapidated. And when coppers are posted there, they run away, they run to city. It's still the same thing. You will agree with me that even the worst private school in that village is thriving far better than the government-owned school there. And whatever you put into that private school comes out very effective, as long as that environment can allow it. So I believe that taking it to making it a general thing, I think it's better. Those of you who are educationists, who are in the academic sector, could actually come up and sit down and tell the government, and permit me, tell yourselves the truth. Look, you can't say Nigeria is not working educationally. No. Now, a school, Covenant University, had been ranked as one of the top, happening schools. Babcock is a very good school. Afe Babalola, very wonderful school. These are schools that I know what is going on in these schools. Christian University, super, fantastic school. If you enter into Christian University, a student who is studying law there is short of coming out of the school, 5 years is done. And that 5 years will be optimally utilized. Now, if in a government school, in order to achieve that 5 years, you will see them jump-adding students, and they keep bringing out nonsense as graduates. Go and carry out an analysis of students from private universities and students from government universities. The ones in government university, they can virtually offer nothing, because practically they even train themselves. But in private universities, students are monitored. You see in public schools, students, instead of engaging in school, in academic programs, which they came for, they will go into businesses. So you discover that these things are no more funny. It's better the government takes its hand off education. Let people come in and invest. You're talking about research and development. Let me see a professor in a public university that can show us a research that he has carried out that has produced anything in this country. But go to the private universities and see what their lecturers are doing. They are doing wonderfully well. So I think research and development, this issue of academics or education, shouldn't be government business. They should be allowed to be self-funded. lecturers, administrators, and managers of these schools should be allowed to fund it. And by that way, it will become very competitive. In America, schools are very competitive. Universities are funded by private individuals, companies. You bring out money, and all your company will want to, okay, for example, my area is carbon, I'm writing on carbon pricing. Now, a company wants, an oil company wants to see how they can secrete their, how they can reinvest their investment from carbon-intensive investment to less carbon-intensive technologies. Which research? So if it is private managed, you call up somebody who is into that, fund the person, and the person will carry out a PhD research, or even go into a thorough research and produce something that will be of help to you. By that time, we are growing. So I beg to disagree that these countries that we are bringing in, or when we are doing this comparative analysis, we should critically look at what is driving. It's not about giving us the result. I tend to value process other than result, because sometimes results can be very misleading. So that's my own way, what I think I should add to this program. And I've really listened to you. Quite wonderful work. I must commend you, sir. You've done a very wonderful job. Your work is very, very exhaustive. But this is me. This is how I feel like.
Okay, thank you, sir. I actually cut down on some things. For instance, I also have something down on this country, Canada. I have on America, but we are not at par with them. But look, this morning, the IT, let's look at this policy, the one, number 6, Education Tax Fund. I hope you know that it was expected to generate funds. And I said, on this issue of research funding, I actually have paper here that talk about the number of schools, private schools that have been approved in the country in the last 10 years is alarming. But we should not just zero in on the private entities alone. I'm working in a private school. Our 4 years is 4 years where I am. But my concern is the role of the government policies. Now, can we begin to look at where government itself privatize our education system? Look at, for instance, this issue of oil, sir, barrister. Look at this issue of oil, the subsidy removal. Is this the way it should be? One of the people I respected in my life is this Professor Sage. I'm an industrial chemist, but I met that man while I was in Unipen in those days. And I came to know him when immediately we finished this conference. This, our president then, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, called some experts and made Professor Sagi to head the committee to look at the risk assessment of all the recommendations, if they should be implemented. And these individuals, professors and academia, came up with the conclusion that, or recommendation that if we do all of this, there will be implosion in the nation. Then they came up with doing it face by face. But when the other government came in, they began to implement without recourse to that. Now, all of these policies I listed, they were formed by one government and another government and another government. There is no policy consistency. There was no consistency in the implementation of our policies. And the one that are implemented were not thoroughly implemented. This has constituted problem. And that's why I said it is not that we do not have policies or because the government failed. Please, sir, if you permit me, I also have a robust work on UAE. I researched about their work, how they came up with what they do, United Arab Emirates. I also did my work on Iran. What these people did, it was government that built schools, built facility, and gave it out for people to run. So government run it. And this is what we should do in Nigeria. We talk about schools. Yes, we are the Nigerian schools. No matter how you think, some of us that are speaking today attended the public schools, and I can beat my chest. I've traveled, I've done programs with other people of other color. I've had to take lectures, remote lectures, taking white students, and I went to all my school, all my life, from primary to my first degree, first master, second master, and my PhD program. I did all of that in public schools. But I'm saying, why is it not translating all these things to skills in our hand? Why do we still have to depend on Malaysia to bring in toothpick? Because there are no skills. And like you have rightly said, sir, Barrister Ogubara, why can't we begin to look at policy that integrate industries to our training? You remember ITF is there, Industrial Training Fund. Instead of then having partnership with all these companies to be able to train students and fund researches, they will send the money to government, and government officials and some of these people they employ will hit up the money. These are part of our problem. And I want to again salute Barrister. Thank you for your insight. If God permits, whenever I have the opportunity of presenting, I will be looking into that direction also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Bankole Ojo. I'm very, very sorry I missed the introduction. Actually, it was because we were battling with the network before we started the lecture. So kindly permit me to quickly introduce our lecturer, even though we are doing this after he has already delivered this lecture. But please, I beg your pardon. Kindly forgive me for that. So our lecturer was Dr. Ojo Bankole Samuel. He was born in February, so February 28th was his birthday. By God's grace, next year birthday shall be celebrated better. So he's an industrial chemist. He studied chemistry, BSc honors from University of Benin City. He said it. He studied all his courses from public, or let me say government universities, where he also studied his master's in industrial chemistry from that same UniBen. And at the same time, he did his PhD in environmental chemistry from the same UniBen. Great UniBen. So he finished his secondary school back in 2001. He has worked in so many companies. In fact, his experience made him do justice to this topic. He is the coordinator and dean of student affairs of Harvard College of Business, Science and Management Studies here in Obada, Abeokuta. He has been in that position for years now, since 2017, where he has been carrying out a lot of assignments, and he has been doing so well in all the assignments given to him. He's also a supervisor at Kwara State University, where he supervised a lot of project works like Nigerian Malaria Indicator Survey. He was once a teacher in Caris International College, Abeokuta, Ogun State, where he taught chemistry, computer science, material science then. That was back in 2011 to like 2012. He has been doing so well, and he carried out a lot of researches in which we have one to the effect of heat treatment on total and available phosphorus in the soil. Also, he also carried out an experiment on exposure level of carbon monoxide in transportation modes while commuting in urban areas, a case study of Benin City. This is a little profile of our lecturer. Dr. Bankole Ojo Samuel, and he owns a educational consult. So here in Abeokuta, and at the same time, he's married with children. Help us give it up for Dr. Bankole Ojo Samuel. And as in fact, despite the fact that I missed his introduction, his lecturer has already introduced him so well. You can see from the lecture that he's so well known in this aspect. Thank you, Dr. Bankole.
Thank you
so now we'll now be accepting questions. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand or type the question in the comment section, please. I myself have questions.
Let me appreciate the lecture. Do I have the audience?
Yes, sir, you can, sir. Yeah.
Let me appreciate our erudite doctor of chemistry. You've done justice to the topic. I enjoyed the lecture, although I've been I tried to give you a fight rather, but that was a very beautiful work. Very, very beautiful. Very, very beautiful and academically grounded. I appreciate the work. I want to, on behalf of the foundation, appreciate you and also pray that the Lord God Almighty continue to enrich you with much wisdom to impact on the general public. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the lecture.
Thank you. Thank you.
Barrister Ogubara is the legal advisor of the foundation. So he has been my personal legal advisor before. So when we now started the foundation, he took up the role of legal advisor for the foundation. So almost everything we do, we need to go through him to make sure that we are not going against the law. So, and he has been doing that for us free of charge. In fact, he has not been collecting anything. Thank you, Barrister Ogubara.
Thank you, sir.
So, yes. Questions now, sir. Dr. Bankole.
Yes, sir, I'm here. Any questions?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. You said inadequate qualified teacher is one of the problems you're having in Nigerian educational system.
Yes, sir.
Is it that you don't have people that are ready to teach, or government is not employing enough? Because what I know is that anybody that goes to NC or you study from the, let's say, Faculty of Education, the university, you are supposed to become a teacher, a professional teacher. So, and we have many graduates that hold certificates in all these courses, NC and BA do. And we have many on the street safe. So how come we now have inadequate qualified teachers? Does it mean that these people are just graduates without quality? Or what can you say about that, sir?
Thank you, sir. You remember, I want to take us back. Just briefly look at that screen again. Number 2, National Policy on Education. If you remember, sir, I want to ask us a question. I would like, if you know it, just unmute yourself and speak. Sir, when I was in primary school, actually, I'm not very intelligent. I actually finished secondary school much earlier than that, but I couldn't make my paper. Then I have to make it much later. Then, so that you won't begin to think this guy no book. I know Sabi book. That's on the light mode. The truth is, this has impact. I want to ask, if you remember, just flash back your primary school books in the 80s. In the 80s, if you attend primary school in the 80s, you will notice that all our primary school has 3 things. The granite pyramid in the north, the cocoa pyramid in the southwest, and the palm trees and rubber in the southeast region. If I'm correct, please, can I hear a confirmation to that?
Yes, sir.
You are correct.
Yes, sir.
Very correct.
Please,
Yes, sir.
I want to ask, at what point did the cocoa pyramid disappear? At what point did the granite pyramid disappear from the north? At what point did the rubber plantation in the south disappear? I want to ask us. You know, I said it earlier that I asked this question at some point. I need a response.
I think it was when the federal government of Nigeria, the economy was no longer agricultural driven. It became oil driven. Everybody depends on oil, crude oil. Everybody. So that was when I think that happened because of excessive dependence on the crude oil.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's a good one, but that was not all. That was not all. By that 1977 National Policy on Education, after the Jerome Udoji recommendation that all civil servant salary should be increased, all the young men and ladies in the farm that used to follow their parents went to school. Schools that usually have 800, or let's say having 100, jumped to 800 because every family wants to collect Udoji money. And that's what happened when government want to cushion the effect of economic downturn by increasing salary. When this happened, the available educational facilities were overwhelmed. We don't have qualified teachers. Remember that as at this time, we have nationalized our industry. No, we have Nigerialized our industries. Before, we have Indians that were teaching in Nigeria. I don't know if any of you know that. There was a time in this country that Indians were teaching. Ghanaians were teaching. P.N. Okeke taught in this country, and many other great people. When this happened, we send all these good hands away when we don't have replacement for them. When we don't have well-trained teachers. Like the secondary school I attended, Victory College, Ikaria Koko, was established by Lennon, Mr. Lennon, or Reverend Lennon, a white man who brought in a whole lot of white teachers who taught our foreigners. But they faced them. The moment we faced these people out, we had issue. Our educational system began to lack capable hands. We now begin to use grade 2. You remember I mentioned it while talking. Grade 2. Who are the grade 2 people? People who finish secondary school, but they've not finished. Do they even finish secondary school? They only finish, they've not even finished secondary school. We use them, primary school leavers becoming teachers because there are no hands. Secondary school teachers becoming teachers because there are no capable hands. All this were what I tag inadequate qualified teachers. And the origin is not 2020. It's not year 2000. I said it can be traced back to our policy that we implemented in 1977, in 1981. And that was what meant we now try to copy China policy in 1982 by using 6334. But yet we do not have enough plan. I told us how China did their own. They started by training teachers. They started by building facilities. It's not like that. It is in Nigeria, you will see us using a BSc to train a BSc. Where will the critical thinking come from? Doctor, I hope I have answered that question. And this is what led to this funding. When there is not enough money on this thing, we have issue. We don't have enough money.
Okay. Dr. Ogumoye, sir, you have your hand raised, so you can ask your question, sir.
Please give me a minute. A minute.
Okay, a minute. Okay. So while we are waiting for our lecturer to continue the lecture, I think you can just interact on a gentle level. Dr. Ogumoye, sir, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you very much. First, I want to appreciate our guest speaker. He has done a real thorough job, and he has done justice to the topic of the day. Though mine is a comment. The first one has to do with the issue of the government policy. Just like he has highlighted most of the policies, but what the gap that we've observed with those policies. No problem, sir. The gap that we have observed with most of those policies has to do with bad implementation. We can have a good policy, but once it gets to the implementation, in most cases, we are always found wanting. So it is that bad implementation that will now result in a low output. People not seeing the desired results from those policies. And none of the government policy is an exemption to that. Even the just policy that was passed to bill, the issue of the loan. If you have to look at it critically, you will know that it is a mission to nowhere. The question would have asked that instead of talking about loan, that you want them to come and repay back. Repay back when there is no job available, they will now become indebted to the government. What happens to the bursary? Who killed those bursary? So the issue of those implementation of those policy is a major challenge. That is one. Two, I also listened to our learned colleague. The area it has called our attention to. You see, if we even not even going far, looking at those the so-called developed countries, most of the underdeveloped country or the developing countries, their government heavily invest in education. It is a misnomer for us to be saying that government doesn't have a business in education. It is part of their corporate responsibility to the student to the citizen, to educate them. For example, in India, I've been to India, I've been to Pakistan. These are also developing countries. Their government invests heavily in education. And the investment is such that they are research-driven. Unlike Nigeria, that our own is structural-driven. Things we want to see with our face, we want to see with our eye, we want to see with the naked eye. One of the points that was mentioned by our guest speaker is the issue of educational trust fund, that is today TED fund. TED fund is conceived to be a research grant. But today, you see buildings here and there. They will label TED fund 2002 intervention, TED fund 2007 intervention. Is that what the money is supposed to be meant for? For those countries that are the developing countries that are thriving very well, they invest in research. But Nigerian government is not ready to go in that direction because they want things that they will see the result immediately. And that is why that's why some sector or some people within the country felt the government doesn't have any business in education. There's no we can compare public to private. The private is profit driven. They have their goal, they have their objective. How many of the students, how many of the general populace can afford the fee? Do you want to send all those people back to the labor markets? And these are the people that are going to be threats to even the so-called educated in the nearest future. And lastly is that what has affected our educational system is the level of corruption within the system. No government policy that is brought on board the implementation and the level of corruption will kill it. That has been the major challenge. Apart from the educational sector, look at other sector of the economy that people are calling for privatization. We privatize NEPA. What do we see out of it? It is darkness. We privatize Nigerian Airways. What comes out of it? Nothing. So all those sectors that have been privatized, what good things comes out of them? So there is no country where we have the private sector, we also have the public sector, both working hand in hand. Government heavily spending on the public, while those with private, those with money, they invest in private. All hands are not equal. Those who want to subscribe to the private will go for private, and they will have the value for their money. While those who cannot afford that, they will also go into the public, and they will also be compensated at the end of the day. No matter the level of the degradation in the public sector, we'll still find those coming out of that sector. You find them excelling. Because no Nigeria will pass through any public school in Nigeria of today, and that person will have an opportunity abroad. You will see them excel. So please, my message is that government has business in education, and they have to fund it heavily if they want to secure the future of the teeming youth of Nigerians. And lastly is that, and that is what we are tailoring the educational system to. We all know about, particularly those of us who are in academics, about the CC mass. That people that are even coming to the wall of the educational system, let us model the curriculum such that it's going to be entrepreneurial driven, so that they will not come out with the BSc now going about with the certificate. Let them see what they could also do all what they are learning in the school. Let us bring out the entrepreneurial skill in them, so that they could on their own be an employer of labor instead of being an employee. And I know in that area we are getting it right. If the syllabus and the curriculum is effectively implemented, and with that we could be able to reduce the effect of the unemployment in our country. So once again, I want to thank the lecturer for the beautiful presentation and a well-researched work. So I pray that God Almighty will continue to be with you. And we also appreciate the foundation for also giving us this wonderful opportunity for us to share our ideas and knowledge on the way forward for our country, because it's not all about we criticizing. It's about we looking at what can we bring on the table that will also be beneficial to others. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Ogmoya Abdulrazak. Dr. Ogmoya Abdulrazak is a senior lecturer from Olabi Onabanjo University in Agogo, from the Department of Chemistry. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any other question or comment, contribution, antagonism, agonism? All right. In the absence of any other question, I would like to appreciate our lecturer and appreciate everybody that has participated in today's webinar. Really appreciate you all. Really thank you so much for giving our time, and especially to use your data to attend this webinar, despite the price of fuel nowadays. You know, data too is expensive nowadays. So really appreciate your efforts, and I believe
When we finish, he's talking. Okay, you mute yourself, sir. Unmute, sir.
I guess it's the network. Probably the network has taken him away. Yeah.
we meet next month again, safe to continue this webinar. So next month's webinar will start by, I think, second Wednesday of next month. Are they having good effects? Are they short of their own roles? Are they carrying out their activities how they're supposed to carry it out? And if not, what is the way forward? So I thank you all once again, and we bring this webinar to a close. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Bankole. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Close.